Welcome back, everybody. O is here, and we're heading into another great time in sports. I feel like I say that every time the last couple of uploads or the last couple of videos, I've said the same thing that we're in the best time playoff football. Um, and right now, this weekend, we have NFL football, playoff football, best time of the year. Now, we're gonna get in, we're gonna do the predictions, we're gonna get right into it. Starting off with the Chargers Texans. Um, Texans have not looked the same as they did last season. Last year they looked like a hungry, tough team. This year they've had some ups and downs. Stephon Diggs getting hurt in the middle of the season didn't really help their situation. Nico Collins getting hurt in the middle of the season didn't help their situation. um, Joe Mixon getting a little bit over 1,000 yards rushing. And CJ Stroud only 20 touchdowns to 12 interceptions. A really big letdown stat wise from a year ago. Um, but if you look, this team, they've had good, consistent games, but they've had a lot of shakeable games where it's been close, where they shouldn't have been in. They should have beaten them handily. In this game versus the Chargers, might I add, is the most interesting game of this whole playoff weekend because both teams, Texans, they're there. Like they're in one of the worst divisions of sports, like the worst divisions in football, and they're struggling, and they're going up against a Charger team that's hungry, that's been wanting this since the last playoff berth. Since that last playoff game, they choked it. They've been wanting to get back and have that feeling of good playoff football. And Jim Harbaugh has really brought that this year for them. And a lot of it has been to do with how he's ran the offense specifically. He's let the defense do what the defense needs to do, which is great. Offense is the only concern, but he was the only concern going into the season, I feel like, with getting rid of Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and bringing in new interesting pieces like J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Ladd McConkey from the draft. He was their best receiver on the team, over 1,000 yards, 82 catches for 7 touchdowns. Ladd McConkey, he's gonna be a future star. He's gonna be all pro. He's gonna be a top 10 receiver in the next couple of seasons. I can feel it. He with him and Justin Herbert, they can click. Now, like there's certain receivers that can click with quarterbacks. Ladd McConkey is one of those guys, and there's a couple other guys on this team I'm starting to have that feeling with as well. um, and then Quentin Johnson comes to mind. He's had a lot of drops, but this year he's improved. Yeah, he had drops in crucial parts of the games, but there's been times in the year where he's made really impressive plays. So it's worse or it's better than last year, but he still needs to make a lot of improvements and he still needs to make big plays. He was second on the team on receiving, and second on the team on catches. So that should say something. He also had, on top of that, 8 touchdowns. So which led the team. So he had a really solid season. It's just those drops he needs to get him better at. And then of course Joshua Palmer, who's been there's been crucial times in games. Um, he's been able to make plays, and he's a very underrated receiver that not many people talk about. He's a lot like how Michael Gallup ran with Dallas for a couple of years. He was that seat receiver that could make plays for you, but not many people really talked about him. And Joshua Palmer is one of those receivers. I've seen times in games, third down situations where he's been able to make crucial catches, and they've been really solid. Um, and it seems like Herbert trusts him in making the into the right place. He also trusts Quentin Johnson too, and Ladd McConkey. Those are the three guys on the team that I could see helping on to this next future for the Chargers. But I was really impressed this season with J.K. Dobbins. Um, the way they've been able to run the ball with him and all the injuries that he's already dealt with, it's been really impressive to see him come back and have a really successful season. Um, but one of the main things on this team we got to look at is the defense. Um, this defense is solid. They have a solid foundation, solid structure. Um, I think a lot of it has to do with how Harbaugh has brought heart into this team. Um, Derwin James, 5 sacks this year as a safety. That's pretty good stat line right there for him. And then they've had 46 sacks on defense, which is really good for them. Um, and they have Tulia Tapalodo from linebacker from USC. He had 8 sacks this season. Looking to see him make some little movements, some noise over there in the pass rush game as they have to play Houston. And this is the most interesting game this week because of how both teams have played and where they've been. Now, I think the Chargers could win pretty good. I have the Chargers winning in this game, mainly because of how Houston has struggled at times this season. If they struggle against this defense and the Chargers get on a beat and they start scoring, and that defense is still holding up throughout most of the game, it's going to be a long day for them, for Houston. So I got the Chargers winning by a field goal because I think Houston will come back at some point and try to make this a good game. Next game, we have the Steelers and we have the Ravens. These two teams have met off twice this year in rivalry matches. They're both 1-1 versus each other just this season. This last month of football for the Steelers have not been great. They were 10-3 and they end up finishing. They were 10-3 at one point. They lost almost 3 straight, I believe. And now they have to go on and they have to play Baltimore, a team that they lost to already before earlier in the year. They've also beat them, and now is at their strongest point of this part of the season. Now we're getting to the playoffs, and mainly, my main thing is how the offense is going to perform for Pittsburgh, because this team, they can rely on their defense to make any play. My main thing is how is the offense going to respond? How are they going to respond with George Pickens? Because we've noticed when George Pickens starts to lose his way middle of the game, or you don't see him much, team starts slowly progressing. But they have to get the ball out to George Pickens. They have to get the ball out. We need to see some of that old Russell Wilson magic this weekend if they're going to have a chance to get into a Super Bowl this year. And then Lamar, of course, MVP, front runner. And then Derrick Henry, really good season from both of these guys. And mainly, when you look at these two players, it's like, who can stop them? There's many few defenses that can stop both of them. But I believe Pittsburgh can be that team that can do it. But a lot of it has to go back on the offense. So I would have Baltimore winning by 10. Because I feel like if they start getting up a little bit on them, Pittsburgh will just slowly start to die out. It happens every time they get into a position where they make the playoffs or need to make it to the playoffs, and then the playoff game happens, they struggle. They don't win. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. Which is surprising that people have kept Mike Tomlin high on their list despite that. Because, hell, Mike McCarthy's only won one playoff game in 5 years with Dallas, and people are threatened to get him off the team. Um, but one playoff win in 8 years, that should say something for you as a coach. Having the winning records every year is pretty good, and it's really good. It shows consistency, but we need to see production in the playoffs to continue that. And I think a lot of those years, Tom Brady, that the 2010s is when that Brady era, 2014 to 2020, that was some of the best years of Brady's playing time. And now Pittsburgh needs to find their next Ben Roethlisberger. And I don't think it's a 36-year-old quarterback that's almost out of his prime. And I don't think it's going to be Justin Fields. If you're going to have Justin Fields on the team, you're going to have your own special option air raid offense like they do with Kyler Murray. But then you need to look for a quarterback. Someone that fits the mold for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Not many people come to mind when I think about them, but there's some dark horses that they look into the offseason drafts that could potentially take that off for them. That would be for a talk for another day, but I would have Baltimore win by 10, and Pittsburgh, they go another year without winning a playoff game. Next but not least, you have the Broncos facing the Buffalo Bills. The Broncos' first playoff game since 2015, which would have been their Super Bowl win against the Panthers. A big year for Denver. This year they got rid of Jared Judy. They got Bo Nix though. And this year I was expecting them to have an okay season, not make any playoff push. But they're in the same boat as the Chargers. They're just rolling every week and seeing what's next, which is good for teams like them because then they're not ready to go for a Super Bowl, but give them time, they will be there. Bo Nix has been absolutely phenomenal this season. He did throw 12 interceptions, but he also threw for 29 rushing for 4 of them. Also ran for 400 yards and threw for 3,700 passing yards. Really good season from him. And it's really more impressive about who he was throwing to all season. I think obviously Courtland Sutton, 81 catches, 1,000 yards. People would have expected him to be the leading receiver. But you look at these next couple of guys, it's going to really impress you at how they've even made it to the playoffs despite what they have on offense. Marvin Mims, 500 yards, 6 touchdowns on 39 catches. That's their second best receiver. Devon Vele, third in receptions, he's second in catches, and is third on the touchdown list. And then the list, it just keeps going from little Jordan Humphreys, or little Jordan Humphrey, Adam Trotman, to Atkins, to Jordan Reynolds, to the list just keeps going down. Troy Franklin, I had some high praise for going into the season. I thought he would be one of the big main points of the offense because of how he has been able to be with Bo Nixon through Oregon, and I thought they were going to connect that bond up until, for the season, but it hasn't been exactly like that. Buffalo, they're a really good team. A lot of it has been to do with how Josh Allen has performed this year. He hasn't thrown as many interceptions as he had the last couple of years. And this year he was up for MVP. He beat two 14 win plus teams in his way of this year. And if you look at the MVP, stats, the production, the way they've played, and who they've beaten. For looking at that, Lamar would most likely going to win MVP because of how the stats look. But if you look deeper, how they've played, who they've beaten, Josh Allen is probably the real MVP in this one. Um, he's played so well in games that they've needed him to play, and we've seen a lot of this because of last year. Because we've had this discussion and argument with Dak Prescott and Lamar last year, and Lamar, even though Lamar should have been nowhere touched as MVP, but because they were one of the top seeds, that's what they were gonna stack on top of it, which is stupid. Um, Now, a lot of people want to blame that last MVP, the MVP part from last year, because how the playoffs were put in. Well, it's not. MVP is for in regular season, not a playoff award. Um, so if we're looking straight at the regular season, for this year, Josh Allen would be my MVP over Lamar. But going back into the playoffs, they're going to be in Buffalo, Denver, Buffalo. It's going to be a really good game. Last time these teams played, I think it was a Sunday night game or Monday night game. I know Bills fired their offensive coordinator shortly after that loss. But I don't think Denver's fully ready. Like they've been like the Chargers. They've been on a roll. Like they've seen who's on the schedule and they've played them and they've beaten them, most of them. The only difference is with the Chargers and Broncos. Chargers are playing a way weaker team than the Broncos are. So the Broncos, they're playing Buffalo. I think it's gonna come down to how Bo Nix and Sean Payton are when it comes to into the pressure. Sean Payton, he's been under pressure before. He's been in Super Bowls, but he has to get his team ready because a lot of these guys haven't played in these big games yet. And he's pretty much just running off with what he has right now because a lot of the dead cap hit from last season because of the whole Russell Wilson release stuff. But I don't think they're ready this year. I think this year they've had a really good season, but I think Buffalo will end up winning, going to the next round of the playoffs. Rams, Vikings. This is going to be interesting because the last time these two teams played, some controversy at the end of the game cost the Vikings a win in their book. And Vikings have been the most untalked about. I've never seen a 14-win team not talked about like the Vikings are. Like coming into this year, we all thought they were going to be into a rebuild. New quarterback. The quarterback gets hurt, and so they have Sam Darnold. And it's like, okay, well, we've seen how Sam Darnold's played in the past, but does he really have what it takes? And I said before the year that Sam Darnold is either going to prove why he deserves to be where he's at in a starting role, or it's going to go back to where he was when he was with the Jets and the Panthers and all that. And he's really shown this year. They've played really well. They've won a lot of close score games. They've been able to win in close games. And with the Vikings, if they do end up winning, they would still have to play the Lions in the next round. So they would have to play two teams that they have not beaten. And that's only if Minnesota wins and Tampa wins and Philadelphia wins. But you would still have to look at how the rest of this playoff schedule looks. But the Rams right now, this is a team that I feel like can win if they have the guys there, they're ready to go. Boom. They're a dark horse team that not many people are talking about because it's just Stafford's old, Cooper Kupp's always injured, Puka Nacua was dealing with injuries this year. defense has helped them in a lot of the games. Um, so, and plus, this could be Matthew Stafford's last hoorah, like last playoff run. Who this could be the last time we see Stafford at a elite level to try to win another Super Bowl. Um, but I think Minnesota's going to come away with the win here. I think they've learned off the last time they've played the Rams, and this time it's not even going to be in LA because the fire's down there, so it's going to be in Arizona, which is going to mess with a lot of the players. But I think Minnesota will come away with the win. Washington, Tampa Bay, these two teams played earlier in the year. Well, they played week 1 with Tampa Bay destroying them. Tampa Bay, they were good strong of the year. They struggled with a couple of losses, but they've been able to come back and make their way into the playoffs. And we saw last year how Baker was at the end of the year, getting wins in, boom, sneaking their team into the playoffs. This year, they've been trying to sneak it in there, but they had a couple of frustrating losses. They lost one to Dallas Sunday Night Football. That was a really ugly one for them, in my opinion. But now they got to play Washington. Washington, they're kind of in the same boat with them. Like, yeah, they have 10, 11 wins. They have 10 wins, I believe. So they're just getting more playoff experience, and they haven't won a playoff game in over 20 or in about 19 years, I believe. So they're coming in trying to win a playoff game. The main thing is how Jaden Daniels is gonna play. I said McDaniel, bro. Jaden Daniels, how is he gonna play? Now, last time Washington seen a quarterback as good as him get into a playoff game, it didn't end too well for him, RG3. I don't think that's going to happen for Jaden Daniels, but he's going to have to show himself, show what he's made of here in the playoffs. This one's a hard one because Baker, the lights get on him a little bit, and he can really shine. But Jaden Daniels, maybe, Washington, they've been able to play, but they've been lucky a lot this year. A lot of their wins have came off last-second scores. So I think Tampa Bay will come away with the win. And if they don't, I believe it will be Washington coming late with a final second score. But I got Tampa Bay winning and going on to the next round. We got Green Bay and we got Philadelphia. These two also played in week 1 in Brazil. That's when Jordan Love got hurt. I don't think there's a few teams I don't think are on the same level as the Eagles and Packers. I don't think they are. They've lost to Minnesota. They've lost to Lions. They've lost to Philadelphia, and they're going to come in. They have to play Philadelphia again in the playoffs. And with how they've rested players for a week, and mainly it's Saquon. Saquon has finally get to go into and see some playoff football. Finally, second time in his career, and I don't think he's gonna line anyone. Like, I don't think he's gonna be easy on any team. I think he's gonna go in and he's gonna run the best we've seen out of him in his whole career. It's gonna come through this whole playoff run. I have a feeling. The main thing I'm worried about is the passing game. Hurts. There's been times this year where the passing game hasn't been there, but also a part of that household, Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore, he had some issues with Dallas when it comes to play calling and how the passing offense was lacking at times, but still would have good seasons. Now we need to see the passing game go unbelievable in this playoffs because they have to play Green Bay, and that's whether if they have to play Tampa or LA, or when they play the Lions, they're gonna need to have their A game on. So I got Philadelphia beating Green Bay in the wild card. Going to the AFC side for the divisional round, Um, the the Ravens would play Baltimore. It would be MVP front runners facing each other in the playoffs, and this was home field advantage would be to Buffalo because they're the second seed. Um, but this game could be game of the year for both teams. Um, both teams can run the ball well. Even in the cold, the Bills could still pass the ball well. Um, but one thing the Ravens have over them is the running game, and if it's gonna be a cold game, um, and if receivers ain't catching balls, the Ravens' running game will be there between Lamar and Derrick Henry. Um, but like I said, the Bills, they've Josh Allen has played on a different level this season, um, and I think he's gonna come away finally get some playoff success, and I think they will beat the Ravens. Chargers, Chiefs in Kansas City. Last time these two teams played, Chargers lost by a last-second field goal, or Chiefs scored off last-second field goal. One of the other ones. 3 o'clock in the morning. Let me be for a minute here. This one's gonna be close, but one thing I've learned, I've said this before. There's two people I don't bet against in the playoffs. That's Tom Brady. That's Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not betting against Patrick Mahomes. I think they were going to go in. They're going to play good defense. Their offense is going to thrive. They're going to get away with a win against the Chargers. Next round for the NFC. The Vikings play the Lions. Divisional round matchup in Ford Field. I think Detroit is the best team in football right now. They've played really well, even with the injuries and all that. They've been able to come in and they've still been able to play and be good every single week. They got to play Minnesota. They're trying to take the throne away from the Lions, but I think the Lions learned a lot from last year. I think they learned a lot from that playoff loss to San Francisco. I think they're now fully prepared to get in and get this win and don't choke nothing, don't lose nothing, just hold on and win. I think the Lions are going to steamroll through the Vikings. We saw in Week 17 they destroyed them. I think playoffs, the Vikings or the Lions, they're going to have an extra week off. And you're giving one of the strongest teams a week off to rest. So yeah, that's gonna be scary for Minnesota. I got the Lions by 20, I think. Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. Tampa Bay has beaten Philadelphia before, twice in the last year, I believe. I believe they beat them earlier in the year. Or they beat the Lions. I don't remember. But these two teams, they've had history, especially from last year in the playoffs. And I think a lot of it is still going to come down to Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to run through that Tampa Bay defense, and that's how they're going to be able to win. So I think Philadelphia will beat Tampa Bay. And now we get into it. The Bills, Chiefs, Lions, Eagles. And it's hard for me not to say because I think the Bills can beat the Chiefs. Okay? But the problem is every year they beat them in the regular season. They look like they're gonna be there. They gotta play the Chiefs again in the playoffs. Everything crumbles. Could this be the year they change it? That is the main focus. Can the Bills overcome everything they have going into the AFC Championship, play the Chiefs, and all they have to do is beat them in Kansas City? Now they beat them at home earlier in the year. They gotta play them in Kansas City. I think that's gonna be too much. I think Kansas City's gonna come in and they're gonna play how they play every year in the playoffs, and they're gonna play well. They're gonna get them, and it's gonna be a really fun game to watch. but I got Kansas City winning. Um, and then we got Detroit. They're playing the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, and then this is not even a decision. I think the Lions are going to destroy them. I think Lions are going to come in, and like I said, I think they've learned a lot of it is learning from last year, and how they've been able to get through this year with the injuries and everything, and the way Goff has been able to play. Um, and plus they're playing in Ford Field, so it's gonna be a lot more of a noise coming in there, because last year they didn't get to play the NFC Championship game in their home stadium. This year they will, and I think they're going to come in and they're going to just lay the hammer on the Eagles. And I think they're going to beat the Eagles, which means the playoffs, the final two teams, the Chiefs and the Lions. And this one I've been hearing this one all year round. And the main thing is it always pops down to this one question: who's gonna win? And I've thought about it. I thought Baltimore was gonna win the Super Bowl this year. I don't know. I don't really know. And my instincts are telling me about the two teams that are already in the Super Bowl right now. These two teams have, even though the Lions, they've been in this is the second straight year of being in the playoffs, but I feel like they've learned a lot. And then you have the Chiefs, who are trying to win their third. And I said I don't bet against the Chiefs in the playoffs, but I have a feeling that if they play this Lions team in this Super Bowl, or if they played each other tomorrow, the Lions would beat them by 20, I think. They would come in and they would beat them pretty good. Hell, they haven't scored 30 yet this year. They haven't scored 30 well at all this season. Now, do I see them scoring 30 against the Lions? No, because if you're playing against the Lions, you're gonna most likely have a shootout. But I think the Lions could possibly beat them by 20 on the Lions' good day. Now, if you're going in and it's Super Bowl, I don't know. I don't know if I can bet against Mahomes, because whenever people bet against him, he just thrives to the occasion and just wins, and that's just scary. Like that. This is like when Brady was in. It's like, yeah, but Brady was able to win, but he's lost a couple. Mahomes has only lost one Super Bowl, and that was against Tom Brady. Otherwise, he hasn't lost to anybody. He lost to Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game, but the Bengals still lost in the Super Bowl. The Chiefs, I think the Chiefs can win. It's just, are they going to win? I think the Lions are going to be the hungry team, but also be a good, experienced team from last year. And when you mix that together, I think that's what's going to be there for them. Now, I'm not saying the Chiefs are hungry for a third, but that's also a lot of pressure to put on, because not many teams has done that. Well, no team has done that. No team has ever done that. They're trying to do what no team's ever done, and that has to put a lot of pressure. So I have the Lions beating the Chiefs, and the Lions are your 2024 Super Bowl champions. Now, every week after the playoffs, I will review the games and everything that's happened in the offseason. I am going to be uploading a videos in the next couple of days talking about all the teams that missed the playoffs and what their offseason main spot should be, and what they should focus at with the draft and coaching and all that shenanigans. But every week throughout these playoffs, we'll talk about that, and we'll get going with this. And also, congratulations to Ohio State for beating Texas in the Cotton Bowl. It'll be Ohio State, Notre Dame in the championship, and I will talk about those in a separate video. So, y'all stay blessed. Have a good one. Enjoy some football. Enjoy your family. Have a good one.